Hi, how are you? Thank you, sir. Look at that. You've had that in your pocket this whole time? It's incredible. It's good to be here in Beaumont, Texas. Who's from Beaumont? There's some of you. Okay. Who's not from Beaumont? Okay. That's good. Good to know. I'm traveling today with my friend Taylor. Why don't you stand up, Taylor? You don't want to follow me on Instagram. You want to follow Taylor Ransom on Instagram. He is the funniest human being, and he does all this church funny bits. It's really good. I just want to say it's incredible to see young adults in church, and so I want to just congratulate Pastor Darian. Like, that's amazing. I think this is like a really important conference, and young adults, maybe it's like regular for you to come to a young adult conference or to a church, but it's not regular like most places. Typically, young adults would be watching reruns of House of Dragons or something with their friends, or Love Island USA. I mean, who knows what you'd be up to. But you're here in church, and that's really awesome. So, letters to the American church. Tonight, I want to talk to your heart. Tomorrow morning, I want to talk to your head. I think both components are very important. Tonight, I essentially, if you're taking notes tonight, the title of my talk is Sticky, Tucky, and Pointy. Sticky, Tucky, and Pointy. Very, very spiritual language. And essentially, I'm going to read about three losers in the Bible. My favorite three losers. I've nicknamed them Sticky, Tucky, and Pointy. And essentially, I want to encourage you that you could do amazing things for God, and you could be a loser, and God seems to pick people with random skills in Scripture and uses them powerfully. And I think that the American church at times suffers. I'm just going to kind of hedge this in, and then we'll get into it. But I think we suffer from a lot of comparison. It's like TikTok has deeply soaked into our persona, and Instagram culture and social media culture, and we have this image of what will work, and so we compare ourselves to other people, and in doing so, we essentially tell God many times that he can't use us because we don't look like, we don't sound like, we don't talk like XYZ. And it's just the biggest lie in the world. And I don't know you. You might be a basket weaver professionally. And I think that God could do something insane with your basket weaving skill if it's surrendered to him. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight. Are you ready? Okay. Let's look at our first passage of Scripture. I believe we have it on the screens here. Where is it? Expecto Patronum. There it is. I don't know if you noticed that, but that was my Patronus charm, and there it is. So 1 Corinthians 1:26-27. I believe we're reading in the ESV. Firstly, I just want to say this and hedge this in. Paul the Apostle's writing to a dumpster fire of a church, the Corinthians. And he starts out, it's the letter to the Corinthians is like one of those encouragement sandwiches. Have you ever talked to a pastor and he's been like, you're doing so good right now, and you're waiting for the other shoe to drop? He's like, but you are a horrible person. Why did you do this? And I love you, right? And it's like there's a love, a slap, and then a love. And so this is kind of Paul's attempt to try to be nice to somebody. And so it goes like this. Consider your calling, brothers. Not many of you were wise according to worldly standards. Kind of sets the pace, really, for 1 Corinthians, because it's a pretty bad letter. Not many were powerful, not many of noble birth. Like, so essentially, you guys suck, you're losers, nobody wants you. Right? He like, oh, thank you. Wow. Keep reading this letter. I hope it gets good. But God chose, and it's such a backhanded compliment. God chose what is foolish in the world. Oh, thank you. Right? To shame the wise. God chose what is weak. Thanks again. To shame the strong. And this verse, when I read it, I think of two things. Firstly, the first thing that I think of is I'm Canadian. I live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but I grew up in Canada, in Ontario, just outside of Toronto, to be precise. And we played street hockey growing up, and we played baseball as well. In street hockey, the way that you pick teams in Canada, it's very socialistic, because that's what Canadians are. And so somebody kneels down and somebody blindfolds that person, and everybody puts their hockey sticks in. Let's say there's 10 guys that are going to play. And so you put all your hockey sticks in, and you know whose stick is whose, because they all have various markings and brands and whatnot. And then the dude who's blinded throws the sticks left to right until they're all gone, and that's how you choose the teams. It's sort of by chance. And nobody's picking or whatever. And I don't like that. I prefer how Americans choose teams. And we would do this for baseball, which of course is an American pastime. And what you do is you line everybody up against the wall, like they're about to be shot. Right? And you have two team captains. And you figure out who the team captains are, maybe doing the bat thing where you put your hands on it and then, whatever. And then first captain goes, he picks first. And he picks the tallest dude. And then captain number 2 picks the second tallest dude, right? You know how you know how this works, right? Have you ever played this before? If you've been to high school, you know how this works. Right? It's public embarrassment 101. Every phys ed class. I was like always, because I'm not the shortest person, but I was usually in that vicinity. And so I was like the third last or the second last person. So you picked, right? Todd, Chad, Jamal. And then it's like Nathan, Jose, Shinya. The Japanese kid on exchange program, right? He's like 4 feet tall. And so it's brutal. It's brutal, dude. But I love it. And you want to know why I love it? I like to win. I love winning. Losing sucks. It's the worst. You don't play to lose, you play to win. Sports are all about winning. There's nothing else. Second place is just a nice name for first loser. So I like that. But God doesn't pick like me. He doesn't pick like me. He doesn't start with all the tall. He doesn't start with Todd and Scott and Jamal, right? He starts with Shinya from Japan. Right? The foreign exchange student. And we see, a great narrative in Scripture is when the prophet Samuel goes to Jesse's house, and the Lord tells him, hey, the next king's going to be here. And he looks, Todd, Chad, all the dudes. And God's like, no. And Samuel's like, are you kidding me? Are you blind, God? And God's like, no, there's another dude. And they forgot about the other dude because the other dude was a loser comparatively to his older brothers. But God's like, give me the runt of the litter. God chose what is weak, what is foolish. And that's what he does. perhaps because he loves to get all the glory, and he likes to win in strange ways, and he has strange strategies. But he's God, and he's brilliant. I think of my parents. I'm Canadian, and Canada is was the Queen's frozen penal colony, right? My wife is Australian. If you stole a horse, you went to Canada. If you killed somebody, they sent you to Australia. That's my stock. That's where I come from, right? Anybody who's been in Canada for over 100 years, right? There's problems. There's reasons why their family got there. They're convicts. My dad, all my uncles have been to jail. I mean, all of them. My dad is the only brother that never went to jail. He was on trial for dealing drugs in the early 70s. And he, during the time of his trial, he got saved at a Teen Challenge coffee house and got on fire for Jesus, got plugged into a local church, and it was like night and day transformation. And my dad's arresting officer heard that he had become a Christian. He became a Jesus freak. And so the arresting officer went to the church that my dad was at, like to find out if this was legit or not. And he went in and he saw my dad like up at the altar dancing and like just all in. And so the arresting officer showed up at my dad's court date, like at the judgment, and he testified to the judge that my dad had become a Jesus freak rather, and he wasn't going to be a problem for Canada. And I was this close to missing teeth and living in a trailer. You know what I'm saying? No offense if you live in a trailer or if you're missing teeth. But like that, my life could have been so different. But the Lord intervened, and my dad's a pastor. Pastor's an amazing church. Myself and my brother and my sister are in ministry. It's wild. And I think that the joke is that God uses the Finochio family because God knows what we're made of, what we're from. And that's us. We're from low stock. We're the foolish things in the world. It's insane. Let's look at our first loser. This is a great story. It's in Exodus. And before we arrive on this scene, if you're familiar with the movie Prince of Egypt, it's one of my favorites ever. Deliver us. Deliver us. It's great. So Moses was raised a prince of Egypt, and he had a lot going for him. And he has this crisis of life and faith. He kills an Egyptian slave. He goes on the run for his life, and he winds up married, tending sheep in Midian. It's middle of nowhere. He's become a shepherd. For an Egyptian, shepherding was an abomination. It was like the last job. It was the worst job that Egyptians wouldn't even hang out with shepherders. And so for 40 years, 40 years, he shepherds. I remember when I was a kid, I read a book for some reason, I was obsessed with Lawrence of Arabia as a child. I was like 8, 9 years old. I would watch the movie every week. My parents were very concerned. And so they're like, hey, well, he wrote a book. You should read his book, 7 Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence. So I'm like 9, and I'm reading this book by T.E. Lawrence, 7 Pillars of Wisdom. And he's describing life in Saudi Arabia and gathering the Arab tribes for a revolt. And he goes, because I was 9, and my parents didn't know what kind of content was in the book, and he goes into graphic detail about the sexual habits of Arab shepherders. And I was like, Mom, am I allowed to read this? And she said yes, actually. It was quite fascinating. My homeschooling mom, she's like, you know what? No, yes, just, anyways, it was weird. Essentially, though, Lawrence was talking about how these shepherders, they go out for months at a time. So where was David? They don't talk to, they're out with sheep, and they go for months. It's wild. And what he was saying was some of these guys are so out of society for so long, they can't talk anymore. Like, they're weird. And perhaps the reason why Moses can't talk anymore is because for 40 years, he's been with sheep. Right? Could be. All I know is that he is devolved in his own eyes because he was a prince of Egypt, and now his best friend is a stick. Right? You ever seen that movie Castaway with Tom Hanks? Right? When you're by yourself, things begin to become your best friends, right? Inanimate objects. You guys remember his best friend? Wilson, exactly. Yeah, a volleyball with blood on it. And so as I read this passage with these crazy things going on in my head, I think, his best friend was probably Sticky. He'd talk to Sticky, and they would share conversations in their mind. And so Moses comes across, and consider this, Moses has devolved, he's become a shepherd, but more importantly, he's old. I think he's 80 years old when God approaches him. Now, if I was God, I'd choose a teenager, right? But God doesn't do that. I mean, consider when God rejects the nations of the world in Genesis 11 and all of their technology, the Tower of TikTok. Look at how incredible our civilization is. Wow, that's incredible. God rejects the nations of the world, and he goes and finds a 75-year-old man who's childless, who's oh, I guess my life is over. I don't have an heir. My life kind of sucks. And God's like, will you follow me? And he's like, well, I'm desperate. I have nothing to do. Yes, I'm in. God was just looking for somebody totally surrendered, and he found that in Abraham. That's the paradox of Genesis 11 and 12. It's fascinating. And that's kind of what we have here. God repeats that motif when he finds Moses basically dead, kind of devolved, can't even talk anymore. And Sticky is his best friend. And so he sees the burning bush, and God begins to call from the burning bush. Moses answers Yahweh. He says, behold, they will not believe me, because Yahweh's like, hey, I want you to get my children of Israel, get them out of Egypt. They're not going to listen to me. They're not going to believe me, for they will say, the Lord did not appear to you, which is a pretty valid argument. It's like, you're making this up. So the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? And he said, it's Sticky. It's my best friend, right? Throw Sticky on the ground. And so he throws Sticky on the ground, and Sticky becomes a serpent, and Moses ran from it, which is hilarious. So he's a coward as well. Oh, and I'm afraid of snakes. Is that going to be a problem? Well, yeah, it is going to be a problem. But the Lord said to Moses, go put your hand out and catch it by the tail. So he put it out, his hand, and caught it, and he became a staff in his hand. He's got Sticky back, and his anxieties are relieved. But consider this. I mean, Sticky represents his devolvement, right? It represents how far he's fallen. It's a job that he can't stand, that he was groomed to hate culturally. And God's going, give me the shepherd's staff, the thing that you were taught to be ashamed of, thing that represents, your life that has become just backwards and forgotten those 40 years. I'm going to use that. And that'll be the stick that he will lead the children of Israel. I mean, he's going to part the Red Sea with that stick. He's going to cleanse water with that stick. It's going to be insane. Miracles are going to come out of sticky. It's a very, very strange ordeal. Let's go to the next one. Love this passage. So Judges 4:18-21, another unlikely person, another unlikely hero. Jael, as a woman that we don't hear of before. And she's at homemaking. And she came out to meet Sisera. Sisera is the general of the enemies of Israel. And he's having a bad day. His armies are losing. So he flees. And she comes out and she sees him running. And so she recognizes him. And so she says, "Turn aside, my Lord. Turn aside to me. Do not be afraid." So he turned aside to her into the tent. And she covered him with a rug. And he said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I'm thirsty." So she opened a skin of milk. That's that gift of hospitality. And she's going the extra mile. "Oh, water? How about milk? I'm going to bless you." Give him a drink, covered him. And he said to her, "Stand at the opening of the tent, and if any man comes and asks you, 'Is anyone here?' say no." Okay, so skin of milk covers him. Jael, the wife of Heber, took a tent peg. I don't know if you've ever seen a tent peg, but it's like a nail that's like this long. Okay? It's a big, long nail. And she took a hammer in her hand. I love where this is going. And she went softly. "He's sleeping right now. I gave him milk and I tucked him in. Tucky." And she drove the peg into his temple until it went down into the ground while he was lying fast asleep from weariness. I love the Bible here. So he died. Thank you, Bible. I was wondering what was going to happen. So what did I just read? Right? What was her special? This is the woman that got Sisera. And what was her special skill? I mean, ultimately, it was hospitality. Like, who knew hospitality was so deadly, right? But in my imagination, it was when she tucked him in bed. Tucky. That's what I called it when I was a kid in Canada. You ever been tucked in? Does it ever get cold enough that you need to get tucked in Texas? No? Oh my gosh, okay. Dude, in Canada, where? Just the AC? Yeah, that's fair. Your AC it does run a little insane. You could hang meat in some of your stores down here. My mom would tuck me in, dude, in Canada. In Canada, I mean, we'll get 3 feet of snow where my parents live. We get snowed in. Y'all ever been no, you've never been snowed in. Who am I talking to? You've been snowed in? Oh, frozen in? Frozen in. No, I'm talking like you can't open your door. It's wild. The snow is like just piled up to here. It's wild, dude. You stay on top of it, actually, I mean, if you're smart. Some people aren't. So it gets cold. Like, it just gets bitter cold in Canada for about 5 months a year, particularly where my parents live in the snow belt. It's like the spot where all of the Great Lakes just dump all of their snow. And anyways, my fondest memories are my mom coming in and you're just freezing cold. And you got the heat on, but it's barely working when it's minus 20 Celsius, minus 25. And that's not even with the wind chill. And so you're like, "Tucky, mommy, Tucky. And so she'll come over, okay, tuck. And you always start at the feet. You guys probably don't know. You've been tucked in? You know what I'm talking. Yeah. You tuck, 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 right up to here. Right? He's tuck, tuck. And then, Mom, you missed my soles. Get that. Tuck, Mommy, Tucky. Right? And she, like that. And it's the best feeling in the world, your mom tucking you in. That was her special skill. Jail. God, how are you going to use me? Well, what are you good at? I can tuck people in. Dude, if I was like Professor X, yeah, I'm not choosing Moses and Sticky and Jail and Tucky. Right? Like, hey, what's your skill, dude? Well, I'm Clark Kent, and I'm a journalist. What can he actually do, though? Well, I'm from this other planet, and I can, bullets bounce off my chest. I can fly. It's kind of insane. You're on the team. What's your name? I'm Peter Parker. Great skills. I was bitten by a radioactive spider, and now I shoot these like things, these webs. They come out, and I'm sort of jumpy, and I'm rambunctious. Okay. Great, you're on the team. It's weird, but you're on the team. What's your name? Storm. What can you do? I make storms when I get angry. Great. Okay. Bruce Wayne. Great. What's your skill? I'm rich. And I have severe PTSD from when my parents were killed. Interesting combination. Okay? You're on the team. I don't get it, but you're on the team. Right? Moses, what do you got? Sticky. Is this a joke? It's a no from me. It's a hard no, right? Jail, what can you do? Tucky. These aren't people that should be in the Bible. I wouldn't pick them, right? In my estimation. But the wonderful things that God does. Here's the last one. It's really simple. This guy's name is Shamgar. Strike one. It's not a good name, right? What's your name? Shamgar. That's irritating. His dad's name is Anath, so strike two, right there. Not picking you. You're weird. Probably a homeschooler. That's a homeschooler name, Shamgar. That's not fair. I take it back. I was homeschooled for a year. 365 days of hell, let me tell you. Learned really quickly that my mom couldn't homeschool. So this dude has a bad day. I mean, obviously not. That's not what happens. But he understands the assignment. Israel is under oppression, and God raises this guy up. And he killed 600 Philistines with a pointy stick. Pointy. What is an ox goad? It's a long, pointy stick, and his job was to just poke cattle in the rear end. No, there's no montage there. Do you know what I mean? You know the hero montages in movies where they're training and they're doing the karate and they're doing flips in the forest and it's to an energetic song? It would just be this dude doing this to cows in the butt. There's nothing there. There's just nothing there. But God's like, no. You know what would be funny? God's talking to the angels. You know what would be hilarious? You know that loser down there with the pointy stick who's Shamgar? They're all laughing, snickering. Yes, what if we raised him up to kill Philistines? Right? Well, what power are we going to give him? The pointy stick. It's genius. The funny thing about high school, and hopefully you guys have figured this out, but the funny thing about high school is when you have cool skills in high school or interesting hobbies, you hide them from your friends. Well, maybe not you. Definitely my generation. I was born in 1982 and I went to high school in the late 90s. Dude, you would never tell anybody that you played video games in the 90s. That would be wedgies every day. That is, you're gonna get picked on for sure. I grew up in a agricultural community, or went to high school in an agricultural community, and so there was like really three types of people at my high school: jocks, hicks, and druggies. That's Canada essentially, and and you have to pick which crew you're gonna be with, or else you're a free agent, and then they're all gonna mess with you. This is how high school worked in the 90s, particularly where I was anyways. So I decided that, I could play ping pong really, really well. I was a decent hockey player, but my ping pong skills were unmatched, and the jocks respected that. And I was pretty funny too, and so I sat with the jocks at lunch. That was my crew, that's who I hung out with. And man, I'm a great piano player. They didn't know that. They were never they don't know to this day, probably. You know what I'm saying? Like, I never whipped out a guitar. I could play guitar too. I never sang them songs because I'd get beat up for that, right? Video games, I would never tell them that I was insane at video games, because you get crushed. And in high school, what you do is you pretend to be something else so that you can be accepted by whatever group that you get into. And you kind of hide like the gold of you, and you adopt these things that you're just not good at. And what can often happen in people's 20s is they keep carrying on borrowed interests or borrowed personas or borrowed dreams from other people that they thought were cool. And then they get in their late 20s and they start to figure out that life doesn't reward people who can kind of do something. It rewards people who are really good at something. And so the quicker you can identify what you're really good at, even if it's weird, life will go way better for you. Also, God doesn't bless your racket. Right? And because that's what it is, it's a racket. It's just this thing that you're doing to get into the group. He blesses the real you. He uses the real part of you. Yes, even that part that you're ashamed of. That part of you that's seemingly insignificant. The part of you that you've discounted. The part of you that you've written off because the dominant groups write it off. The part of you that you've hidden. That's what's mental. When I was, I'm going to give you, this is a funny story. So, I played video games in the 90s. Didn't tell my friends, obviously. GoldenEye changed my life. It was like the first, well, that's not true. I started playing Wolfenstein 3D on a Commodore 64. Most of you won't understand. It's fine. Remain in ignorance. But it was like this insane first-person shooter game where you are a POW escaping a Nazi castle in Bavaria. And you're ghosting these Nazis, right? Dumping German shepherds with a knife. It's amazing. It was terrifying, actually. I'm like 7, 8, you're using the controller. It's crazy. The keyboard. And then I got into video games. They didn't have any first-person shooters kind of like that were multiplayer. And GoldenEye was really one of the first ones that came out. And I was like, this is insane. Went to Bible college, and Halo came out. I started to play Halo a ton. We used to do LAN parties in the dorms. It would come to fisticuffs every night. The biggest fights I ever saw were over Halo teams. It was awesome. At Bible college, of course. Pastors' sons getting very competitive. The Bible college that I went to it was like where pastors would send their derelict sons for rehab. So anyways, it was awesome. And then at the end of Bible college, Call of Duty came out. And I got into Call of Duty hard. And I just absolutely loved it. I come back to our town, small town, 1,800 people. And my dad's like, you should be the youth pastor. Why don't you help us with the youth? I'm like, okay, I could do that. we had, I think, maybe 10 or 11, 12 youth. And I'm, okay, what do you want me to do? What should I do? He's like, well, we'll go find youth. Like, we need youth. We need to go minister to youth. Okay. And then Dad's like, well, there's this guy in town, and he has like a standing meeting at the local public school, elementary school. There was like 5 rotten apples that the public school system didn't know what to do with. And in Canada, like, they're super anti-church in school. You can't have anything church in public schools in Canada. But they were so desperate that they invited this Christian organization to help. And so I connected with this guy, and I started going to these meetings on Wednesday afternoons. And these kids, I wouldn't pick them to be even Christian. Do you know what I mean? Like, the devil didn't want them, to be honest with you. Like, they were weird. And they were all into, like, Slipknot, which is awful. And, it's horrible music tastes. And they were always, like, going to, like, weird concerts, like Marilyn Manson concerts. I'm like, how are your parents, like, actually, wow, your parents are letting you go to, makes sense now, right? Like, you're screwed up because your parents hate you and let you do whatever you want. So anyways, I could never understand what they were saying. They're like 12 years old, 13 years old, and they talk like that. They're kind of nerdy a little bit. They're like dark nerds. You know what I mean? They're the ones in Reddit chats now, that type. But these guys, like the dark net forums, these are the kind of guys that run our world now. But somehow, by the grace of God, I got to these 5. And I remember, they're cackling back and forth in loser talk. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is the worst job I've ever had. And I'm not going to stay in this small town. I'm going to go do awesome things. But these guys have no chance. And I'm not going to connect with them. And nobody wants them. And their parents don't even want them. And so, whatever. And one of them goes, Call of Duty. And I was like, excuse me? Did you just say Call of Duty? And they're like, yeah, Call of Duty. And I'm like, I play Call of Duty. They're like, you don't play Call of Duty. I'm like, I dabble. I don't dabble. I wrecked these kids. And what I did was, I'm like, well, yeah, I play. So, like, why don't you come over? Do you want to come over to my house? I'm a grown man. You're 12. Come over to my basement. Your parents definitely won't mind. And so that was youth ministry 20 years ago. So their parents, yeah, I don't think I ever even saw their parents once. So they come over, and man, I wrecked these kids. And I'm chirping them and just like, you guys suck, and they're loving it, right? They're loving it. And so we start to play all the time. We play all the time. And they start coming to church. They started coming to church because of this connection with somebody who had a skill that I never. You go to Bible college and you learn how to parse Greek. But that's not what connects with these guys, right? It was like wrecking them online, which is, by the way, what I still do. I wreck people on Fortnite. I wreck kids. I'm very sweaty. It's insane. But these kids start coming to church, and then they start inviting their friends. And then their friends started inviting their friends. And then their friends started, and our youth ministry exploded. I think my dad's church at the time was like maybe 300 adults and 11, 12 teenagers and a lot of kids. And I was there for 2 years, and our last service, I think we had maybe 180 plus kids that were half of them were from the community or more. And anyways, it was insane. Just related to those kids, I'd say half of them were. It was wild. And I point to, I give God all the glory. But I wonder if it was those connections that we're just like, God could never use this that God used. Like, it's not, like, what if what God's going to do in your life is going to be so insanely out of the box, and it's going to be something that you never thought of, and it probably is. But I know this. It's going to be something that you authentically are. And I'm not talking about, like, something sinful or whatever. I'm talking about, like, just strange things about your life that God somehow uses and redeems. And we just, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think you're hearing me tonight, it's like, don't think that what ministry or what evangelism or what the future of the church has to look like. And now I'm a local church guy. You cut me open, I bleed local church. I believe in the. I'm not talking about that, but I'm saying connections with people, number one, and what God could do. One of my favorite stories. Somebody's working right now, and I'm worried about it. I think it's HBO. They're working on my wife sent it to me the other day. They're working on a story of the Guinness family, and like the beer Guinness, and. They're using a lot of the crew that was part of Peaky Blinders to tell the story of the Guinness family, who started the Guinness beer thing. And I'm sure it's going to be horrible, and they're going to stretch the truth. But I know about the story of Arthur Guinness. He got radically saved under the ministry of, I believe it was John Wesley, and he gave his life to the ministry, and he single-handedly started Sunday school in Ireland. And the guy used his his booze business to finance the gospel all over Ireland. Like, it's an incredible story. My dad, who doesn't drink to this day, will have a Guinness every now and then because he loves that story. It's just such a good story. It's like, who knows what God will do in your life? Who knows? But I'll bet it's going to be something weird and wonderful and awesome, and something that you sort of, and don't discount things that you're ashamed of either. Oh, it doesn't look like this. Oh, I'm not a TikTok person, and God's never going to use me. Stop scrolling. Do you see this crown of thorns? Guy's bleeding. It's like, buddy, are you okay? I'm just not able to be dramatic like that online, so I'm never going to be able to reach my generation. It's like, you be you. And God will use you. My last story, or my last verse, it's a really the simple one. It's the kid, and he's hanging with the disciple. He's hanging with Jesus. And there's 5,000 people that need to be fed. And all he's got is lunch. That's his special. What do you got? I have lunch. If you have lunch, dude, God can use you. If your skill is Tucky, God can use you to destroy the enemy, right? If your best friend is a stick, God could use you. Maybe you feel like, I'm too old, God could never use me. Well, Abraham and Moses, God used them mightily, powerfully. Don't discount your age, whether you're young, whether you're old. The key is to be surrendered. God, I surrender to you. We were singing about it tonight. God, I surrender my life to you. I give my life to you. And if we'll do that, God will use your Sticky, your Tucky, your Pointy for his glory in an incredible, incredible way. Let me pray for you. Father, I thank you for how you've made each and every young person here. You made them unique. You've given them incredible gifts, unique gifts. Some of them they feel like they're not that gifted, they're not that talented. But God, I ask you that they would realize, that your Holy Spirit would cause them to realize the power of a surrendered life. Lord, that what we give to you becomes multiplied to your glory. Maybe there's been something that it's happened in your life, something you did. Maybe it's something that was done to you. There's parts of your life and you're going, God, not only do I not have any skills, but I feel broken. I feel like I could just never be somebody that you could use. And that's a lie. God loves you. He knows you. He knows your past. He's the God of your past. He's the God of your present. He's also the God of your future. And if you'll just surrender your heart and your life to him and say, God, I take this, every part of me, my past maybe that I'm ashamed of, things that I feel like I'm just missing, insignificant, seemingly insignificant gifts, talents, oddities, God, I give them to you. All for your glory, Lord. If you'll do that, God will use you in a powerful way. Thank you, Lord. Father, I ask you as well that your Holy Spirit would fill every heart in a fresh way. Holy Spirit, when you were poured out on the day of Pentecost, you caused so much boldness to come into Peter's life, Peter who was the coward. And that's what you do, Holy Spirit, you bring boldness. Father, I ask you that our boldness, that our confidence would be in your ability, knowing your power, your awesomeness. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.